Welcome to the third Hall of Fame induction ceremony of the Topeka Tennis Association. I'm Tim McManus, your host for the evening, and in the immortal words of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, God only knows why they asked me to do this. I know some of you are wondering why the green jacket. Actually, this was fit for Jordan Spieth, but that didn't quite work out so well. So I found this on eBay and I got it for a song. Thank you everyone for coming from near and far away as China, to honor our three individuals tonight, our inductees, John Grantham, Jennifer Subert-Hastert, and Larry Reed. I'd also like to thank the induction committee, Mark Nordstrom, Kent Lammers, Bob Keeshan, Diana Chrisman, and Rogers Brazier, as well as the TTA board members for making this event possible tonight. Thanks to Darrell Greenstreet. Darrell, are you here tonight? There he is. Thank you so much, Darrell, for letting us use the facility, and thanks to Genesis. They've granted us a lot of goodwill here tonight, and we are really appreciative. You'll have to excuse me for reading from my notes. Apparently, we've had some technical problems with the teleprompter. It's not working. In fact, I understand the Genesis website is down now for a while. So it looks like the tennis club is having trouble with the server. Get it? That's a little tennis humor. Okay. What's the name of a woman standing in the middle of a tennis court? Anybody? Annette. Why do tennis players have low self-esteem? They have too many faults. When does a British tennis player's match end? When it's Wimbledon. Okay. And thus endeth my career as a stand-up comedian. You know, Topeka really is a wonderful tennis community. Over the years, my wife Hildegard and I have met so many tremendous people, and a lot of them are now friends for life. Topeka's tennis history is rich in tradition and accomplishments. This year, the Topeka Tennis Association will host the 77th annual Jayhawk Tennis Tournament, the longest-running tournament in the Missouri Valley. It takes a lot of volunteers to make the Jayhawk the success that it is, and I'd like to thank all those who have participated over the years, from Larry Reed to Mr. Clark to the present-day volunteers, for their dedication. I'd like to take a moment to recognize one of our TTA board members who recently passed away, Steve Brocksterman. Steve was instrumental in helping run the Jayhawk the last few years, so God bless his soul. In terms of accomplishments, the list goes on and on. Thanks to our tennis historian and Hall of Famer Mark Nordstrom, we think we have a fairly accurate list of state champions dating back to 1928. And speaking of champions, the TTA owes a special debt of gratitude to Mark for his many years of service. Although injured many years ago and unable to play the game he loves, Mark continues to champion the game of tennis in Topeka. His dedication and support over the years are truly remarkable, and his inclusion in the Hall of Fame is much deserved. Thank you, Mark. You know, and I think we have some other Hall of Famers here tonight. Thank them so much for coming. I hope I don't miss anybody. We've got Randy McGrath is here tonight. Randy, if you want to say hi, that'd be great. I think Tim Clark is here also. Junior Brown is here somewhere. Two years ago, Junior, you had a tuxedo on. What happened? Am I leaving anybody out? Any other Hall of Fame inductees that are here tonight? Thank you so much for coming. Okay, back to our list. According to our records, Topekans have won a total of 58 state titles, 41 in boys singles and doubles, and 18 in girls singles and doubles. Several of our players have won multiple state championships, including one of tonight's inductees, Mr. Grantham. We have several other people here, I don't know how many of them are here tonight, that have won multiple state championships. Zebby Robertson, I don't know if she's here. Sherry Norris. Connie, her mother, is here. Sherry Norris, Joel Hoffman. It's quite a list. And I think we have another multiple-time state champion in the house tonight. His name is Tommy Hunter. Tommy, are you in the back there? You might want to stand up and say hi to everybody. Tommy has won 3 state championships, equaling Mr. Grantham's record, and he's shooting for his 4th in about a month here in Topeka. So good luck, Tommy. I should mention that Mr. Grantham was ineligible to play his first year because he was in middle school. That doesn't take away from what Tommy's going to accomplish. I'd also like to recognize other members of the Hunter family. I'd like to recognize Paige Hunter, the oldest sister, who got the ball rolling, no pun intended. There's Paige. I'd like to recognize Blake Hunter. Blake, you want to stand up? Blake Hunter is playing at Washburn University now. Blake has twice this year been named the MIAA Player of the Week. I believe he's ranked in the top 20 in the country in doubles. And earlier this year, he and his partner defeated the number 4 team in the nation. So Blake has just blossomed since he's been at Washburn University. Congratulations, Blake. But I'm not done yet. Brooklyn Hunter, the youngest. Brooklyn, do you want to stand up? That's right, she's about 6 feet tall. Brooklyn is a freshman at Hayden High School. This year, she won the state championship in tennis, defeating the defending state champion. A week later, she participated in the state volleyball tournament. Hayden High School won the state championship, and Brooklyn was named to the all-tournament team. For that, Brooklyn appeared in Sports Illustrated in Faces in the Crowd. Congratulations to Brooklyn. The only question I have is, what are you feeding this children? And where can I get some of that? So the Hunters absolutely joined the ranks of the great tennis families here in Topeka, the Reeds, the Clarks, the McGraths, the list goes on and on. Topeka high school teams have won numerous state titles over the years. One program in particular, Washburn Rural, has accounted for several of those titles thanks to the greatest coach in Kansas high school history, our own Hall of Famer, Kevin Hedberg. I don't know that Kevin's here tonight, but he certainly deserves a round of applause. Many of our players have gone on to distinguish themselves at the college level, accomplishing great things. 2 of them are being inducted tonight. Washburn University boasts a rich history and level of success, and many former players are here with us tonight to help honor the inductees. At the adult level, Topeka has enjoyed more than its share of success competing in USTA League tennis. Men's teams, women's teams, mixed teams have won countless sectional championships over the years and advanced to the nationals. This is truly remarkable for a city our size. Now, this success doesn't happen without a number of factors. We've one of the finest public tennis facilities in the Midwest in Kossover Tennis Center. The players love the game and work hard at it all the time. We've dedicated coaches like Mel Brown, Bob Bundy, Diana Christman, Terry Cobb, Deb Frost. They all go out of their way to organize and support and, quite honestly, herd a lot of cats along the way. Our local pros like Darryl Greenstreet, Danny, Brian, Junior, Brandon, and Ryan do an outstanding job in preparing everyone for competition. They've contributed greatly to our team's success, not to mention the success of a lot of the junior players here in Topeka. So to our pros, thank you very much for all you do. But tonight, we're here to recognize the best of the best. Our first inductee is Jennifer Subert Hastert. Jennifer played tennis at Washburn from 1991 to 1993 and 1995 to 96. She was a 3-time NCAA Division II All-American. She won 4 MIAA individual championships, posting a 64-9 record in singles and 59-11 in doubles. Jennifer was ranked as high as 4th in the nation in singles and 7th in doubles during her career. Jennifer coached the Washburn men's and women's programs from 2000 to 2008, guiding both teams to 2 MIAA titles. Her coaching record of 280 and 128, 115 and 77 with the men, and 165 and 51 with the women, I guess the women were easier to coach. She led Washburn to 13 combined NCAA regional tournament appearances and 4 national tournament appearances. Jennifer was inducted into the Washburn Athletic Hall of Fame in 2008. Here to introduce Jennifer is Chris Castillo, one of Jennifer's former players and her friend.
I'm a little bit shorter, I apologize. Well, like he said, my name is Chris Castillo Klima. I am honored to introduce Jen Hastert to you this evening. I was in Jen's first recruiting class at Washburn, which is much longer than we both would like to admit. She coached with compassion and integrity. My freshman year was tough. I struggled moving away from home and trying to find my place on our team. Jen always checked in with me to make sure that I was doing well and that I wasn't homesick. She made me feel like she was putting my personal well-being before tennis. I recently reached out to some of my former tennis mates and asked them to share some funny stories and how they would describe Jen as a coach. I will save the stories for later when we have a couple more beers. But what they've described her as is someone who was direct, kind, had a great sense of humor, and would always stand up for her team. On the court, Jen was encouraging, but she always knew how to challenge you. Off the court, she made a point to know you individually. My most memorable moment about Jen was right after we won our conference my junior year. The title came down to my last third set. And after we won, she came out on the court with the biggest smile, and she said, "You did it." To have my coach, who I had admired for years, be so proud was invaluable. I take that with me today. I am so thankful to be able to turn to her if I need anything. She will always be my coach, and more importantly, my friend. I introduce to you Jennifer Hastert.
I have the hunter height up here, so can everybody hear me okay? I'm not too loud. I want to thank Chris. She was, like she said, one of my first recruits, and she was one of those gals on the team that, and I had many of them, but who maybe didn't get all the limelight and the articles in the newspapers, but she was a steady win for us every single time. And I won't forget that match because it came down to her match against Northwest Missouri State. Need I say more? They were our nemesis, and I think they still are with Washburn tennis. And not only did she win it, it was a third set tiebreaker. And do you remember the score? What was it? It was tight. It was like 12-10, and I aged like 6 years during that match. But it was really exciting, and to see her, I mean, the coaching experience was amazing, and I have so many great memories. But even more so now, seeing former players go on to have success and fulfilling lives and their own children to raise is what's most exciting to me. So anyway, thank you for the nice introduction. I look forward to hearing those stories later, I think. And as far as this goes, this was such a great surprise, and I just didn't feel worthy of it at all because I didn't grow up here. And by the way, Kent had emailed me and said to keep this to 15 minutes. So I have no notes because I ditched my hour speech. So I know you all are probably disappointed about that. But I did not grow up here. I grew up in Iowa. And my dad was my coach, and he was very, very thorough with his research on tournaments. And one of the tournaments that we always hit partially because I had an aunt and uncle that were here in Topeka and still are, and was the Jayhawk. And it was just always on our schedule as a junior player. And I mean, I had a lot of tournaments I was going to, national tournaments, sectional tournaments, but we always made time to come down to the Jayhawk Open because it brought in so much good talent, not only just in the section, but nationally. There was great talent here, and even in college I would play this because the college players would come in, and I think that speaks so highly to the Topeka Tennis Association and the type of reputation they have around the state and the section and the country as to the tournaments that they put on. And so that was my first introduction to Topeka, and it was really a natural fit when I graduated from high school to then come down here and visit Washburn on a recruiting trip. And I don't know if any of you remember Peg Marmont, but she coached at Washburn for years. Tennis, gymnastics, I don't even know what else. There was a lot of things she coached, but she was the coach that brought me down here on a recruiting trip, and it was just the most amazing visit. I had visited Northwest and Truman, and by the end of those 3 visits, I knew Topeka was the place for me. Between her, the people I had met, and just the welcome I had gotten when I came on my visit, I just knew this was where I wanted to be. So when I got here as a player, again, this community just wrapped their arms around me and invested in me. I had, like I said, Peg, and she was very much to me what Chris said I was to her. She of course loved us as players and wanted to see us do our best on the court, but she really loved us as people, and we all flourished under her because of that, and I used her as my role model when I started to coach. But outside of that, there were people in the community like Kurt Reed and Mary Brownback and handfuls of others who would take time out of their busy work schedules. They were probably closer to my age, or maybe a little younger, when I was in college, to come out and hit with me, talk with me about tennis. Kurt, you probably don't even remember this. Do you remember we were on this court day after day over there serving? I was so scared to serve and volley in singles. I did not want to serve and volley in singles. And he was like, you can do it, you can do it. And I ended up winning the conference title in singles, serving and volleying my senior year. And it was because Kurt took the time to invest in a kid. And that's what Topeka does. And I love Topeka for it, and there's nothing like it. And then outside of that, you also have facilities like Genesis, which it was Wood Valley when I was here, Topeka Country Club, Kossover Tennis Center, and those people who hire, and they still do hire these Washburn tennis players to come in and teach these kids how to play tennis. And you learn more about your own game when you're teaching others. You also learn how to serve the community, and you learn how to take the sport and think about it more in a professional way. Charlotte Wiley, who's here tonight, she was the director of tennis at Kossover, and I had never really thought of tennis being a professional thing for myself. It was just something I played, and she really encouraged me to get my USPTA certification and look at it more as a business than just something I played. And that, again, was invaluable. And then finally, when I came and interviewed at 26, I was 26 years old when I interviewed for the Washburn coaching position. And there were alumni like Mark Nordstrom and Kent Lammers who just rose up and took a chance on a 26-year-old kid, a female, to coach the men and the women. And I mean, I look back at it and I don't think I would have hired myself, but they did. And I will be forever thankful for that. So I stand up here humbly accepting this award, but I feel like I need to give it back to the city of Topeka because, you guys have just loved me and embraced me, and I really appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Come back up, Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you, and welcome to the Topeka Tennis Association Hall of Fame. And please keep this plaque in recognition of all you've accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our next inductee is John Grantham. John was a 3-time Class AA state singles champion for Topeka High from 1960 to 1962. John played tennis at Kansas University, winning 2 Big 8 Conference team championships. And I think a couple of his teammates are here tonight, Don Gordy and Jim Keller. Hey, guys. John also won Big 8 individual titles in singles and doubles. John was ranked number 84 on the Capital Journal's list of Shawnee County's top 100 athletes of all time. Here to introduce John is his daughter, Jill Terry.
Good evening. I have the pleasure and honor of introducing you to my father tonight. So my dad has loved tennis, probably as most of you have, all his life. Started playing before the age of 10. He spent hours and hours on the court, both tennis and basketball, actually. He tells the story of how he played basketball with a peach basket as a hoop. I always kind of thought that was the uphill both ways kind of story, but that's what he says. So by high school, Dad was a nationally ranked tennis player. He won the singles state title all 3 years, as you've heard, and by his senior year, he was nationally ranked number 28 in singles and number 18 in doubles. I take that to mean his partner was better than he was. So he went to college at KU. He won the Big 8 championship as a team his sophomore and junior year. And his senior year, as just stated, he won the singles and doubles Big 8 championship. From what I've also been told, his sister tells me that he also won the Big 8 championship in ping pong. So I think he spent a lot of time on the tennis courts with the ping pong table. Not so much on the books, from what I understand, but after college, he took a break from tennis. But luckily for me and for the rest of my family, he picked it back up later in life, and he gave us all the opportunity to learn a lifetime sport. I think he always hoped that one of us would be as competitive and successful as he was on the court. Those, of course, were big shoes to fill, and it didn't happen. But I do remember my competitive days, Dad driving me across the state of Texas, tournament after tournament. The thing I remember is that he couldn't sit still while I played. So pacing, 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 pacing. And then he was probably wondering what to say after I lost love and came off the court with a big smile because I hit a great shot. In more recent years, though, Dad has won 2 USTA national titles, one in senior men's and one in open, where he tells me he was the token senior on the team. So without further ado, let me introduce my reason for loving tennis, my supporter in all things I do, and an asset to the tennis community, Mr. John Grantham.
Good evening. Now, I'm going to read a very long, no, I'm not. Okay. Just let me say that this is the first time I have ever won an election. My last election was at Topeka High. I had 58 votes. My opponent had 400, and well, who's counting? Well, we took a drive around town, and I guess I should say we took around and around and around. We were so lost. We would go by the same McDonald's 3 times, once on one side, once on the other side. We went by Topeka High, and it is the most beautiful school I have ever seen. Next, over to Hughes Courts. Well, you're laughing. It's changed. The court shrunk. But I still have a lot of memories from Hughes Courts. And I learned the value of free. If you'll remember, if you guys were alive during this time, that if you drank 10 sodas in an hour, you got them free. So I did, and then I got a free stomachache. Well, I also drove by 333 Cortland. It's my childhood home, and it seems to be smaller now also. I want to tell you about my family. My father graduated from USC with a master's degree in 1933. My mother graduated from University of Missouri in 1932. My sisters graduated from Kansas, both Phi Beta Kappas, and both never made less than an A. And then there was me. I know what you're thinking. I am a CEO, judge, a doctor. Oh no, Randy, that's your family. Oh no. Mom took the blame for this. She said by the time it came to me, she had run out of brains. She'd give them all to my sisters. And then she referred to me as bless his heart. So the rest of my life and my family, I'm bless his heart. My father gave me two incredible gifts. The first was a racket. I was 9 years old. Did I like it? I slept with it that night. The second was a tub full of papers and pamphlets, but in that tub were a bunch of articles cut out by my father, newspaper articles. So I took the opportunity to turn on 60s music, turn on the fireplace, summon my dog Benji beside me, and poured a glass of my favorite wine and sat down to admire myself, article after article. So I just happened to have some of these articles. The first one says, temper, temper, temper. Some players control it, others don't. I was others. The next article I read, these two were in a row, I swear. Tempers flare as Grantham wins. And I guess I had a top of a net post on my head. It was not good. So it was pretty bad. Does this remind you of anybody like John McEnroe? But it gets worse. Oh, it does. Randy, yes, it does. McGrath defeats Grantham. And it goes on to say that not only did Barry beat me in August, he beat me in June, and he beat me in July. Now, what's worse, Barry beating me 3 times in a row, or my father cutting these articles out? Well, I've lost many times to Barry. And as you can tell, I hated to lose, and especially to Barry. So Barry, I've been wanting to say this for a long time, and you're not going to like it. You made me a better tennis player. Every step of the way, people have helped me. First and foremost, my family of constant encouragement, no matter whether I'd won or lost or whatever I was doing. And then there was Bill Smith. Anybody remember Bill Smith? Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about those who don't know Bill. First of all, I'm not sure that's his name. He was 35 years old, a patient at Menninger's. And the first time I saw him, he had overalls on. It was 100 degrees outside, and he was playing tennis. and everybody was laughing, but what I saw was he never missed a shot. So I went up to him and I said, Mr. Smith, would you play with me? And he was gracious enough to do that, and he did it for 2 years. And by the time those 2 years were up, I was a totally different tennis player. I was much better. Bill never talked about himself, and I'm sure for known reasons. But I finally got out of him. I said, I'm going to play at Kalamazoo. That was our nationals. Maybe it still is or not. And I want to play on clay, and we used to have clay and hard courts. And he said, yeah, I know. So I went home, came back, and I thought, yeah, I know. Yeah. I said, Bill, have you been to Kalamazoo? And he said, yes, I was upset there. And I said, upset? Kalamazoo? He said, I said, well, what round was that? He said, the finals. And I said, Bill, you were the #1 seed at Kalamazoo? And he said, for 4 years. So that's who I'd been playing with for 2 years. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And as far as tennis players in Topeka, I don't think I've ever seen a better tennis player than Bill Smith. So I was a very fortunate person. Earl Buchholz was the other person. He was a teaching pro. He was head of the Junior Development League in the U.S. And he taught me about strategy, and I could go on and on about that. But oddly enough, I remember all that. And a lot of what he said 50 years ago applies in today's tennis. So I also went to teach tennis for Earl in the summers. And there's one thing I learned, is that as a teacher, you need patience. And of course, from what you've heard, I don't have that, so I knew I couldn't teach tennis. So my hat is off to the teaching pros. They're patient, they're kind, it doesn't matter what level you are, they keep you interested, and it's great for the game. Well, at 18, I was the best I was going to be. And at KU, as a freshman, you couldn't play. So by the time I got to my sophomore year, well, let's see, I had gained weight, lost my ground strokes, I still haven't found them, and taking a page out of Earl's book, I sat down and said, how can I win without ground strokes? So my serve was good, my volley was good, the rest of it was okay. So I decided that's what I was going to do. So I played the next 3 years serving and volleying, hitting a service return and volleying, and hitting drop shots. And that actually got me through my years at KU. But I can say that I was burned out. I had had 10 years playing tennis, traveling. I got to a point where I hated restaurants, I hated hotels, and actually hated tennis. So sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. Now, fast forward 10 years, my 6-year-old daughter, who introduced me, Jill, said, Daddy, do you know how to play tennis? And I said, yes. And so that started a lifetime of backboards, lessons, and tournaments, this time shared with my family. Also, my tournaments had longer names, as in senior, super senior, and we talked about different things. Instead of talking about what everyone else did when you were in juniors, we talked about where the nearest medical facility was, hip and knee replacements, who was lucky enough to sit out, and instead of beer, It was martinis, scotch, and good wines. So I cannot imagine my life without tennis, and I owe it to a lot of people, and I will promote it anytime I get a chance. Now, last but not least, this story could not get any better. This young man is about to break my record of winning 3 state tennis championships by winning 4. That's hard for me to say, but Tommy, would you come up here, please? You notice when he stands here next to me, we're about the same height. I'm kidding. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I will always follow you, and you know that. So I have some questions to ask you, Tommy. Okay? How do you play a state tournament and only lose 2 games? It's okay. Tell me, how do you do that? I couldn't do it. I won 9-7 in the third, 6. I mean, there's no way. Easy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm embarrassing you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to get down to the serious question. You know, or maybe you don't know, I'm 71 years old. Okay? You know that? Do you feel bad of breaking my 50-year-old record?
No.
No, did you hear that? No. Okay, I'm going to make a bet. And I'm going to bet you a Coke, okay?
Okay.
I don't like to wager a lot. That I can beat you. Oh, did you hear that? Hush, come over the crowd. All right, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, 1 set, 1 point tiebreaker. Well, yeah, I got to have an edge. All right? Oh, and the other thing is, your rackets are better than my rackets used to be, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll use your racket. I'm not going to hurt it.
Okay.
And you use my racket.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. See, yeah. Okay. All right, now, how many, just raise your hand. How many think that Tommy is going to beat me tomorrow morning? God, my own family has 2 hands up. I just said 1. All right, well, I just happen to have my racket with me. Now, this racket is a normal racket for me to have for 10 years. Always in my bag. Jane, would you, my daughter Jamie, would you bring me the racket? Thank you, darling. Okay. Now I'm going to open this up and I want you to get the feel of the racket. I know
Okay,
it's
all
different. Okay? Okay. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. Here you go. You had no faith in me, did you? That's a typical racket for me. Well, Tommy, congratulations. I'll be rooting for you. I want to thank everybody for being here, for those that put it on, my family for coming, and extended family. And thank you very much, and Godspeed. You did great. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and welcome to the Topeka Tennis Association Hall of Fame. We do have an additional award for you tonight based on your headlines and the looks of your racket. It's called the MAD Award. It's the Meritorious Award for Demented Demeanor. Thank you and congratulations, and thanks to his family for coming in from all over the country. Our next inductee is known to many of you folks, Larry Reed. Larry was the Topeka High men's tennis coach and football coach for more than a decade. He was co-founder of the Topeka Tennis Association. Larry operated a tennis racket and stringing business at his home and Wood Valley Racket Club for many years. He graduated from Topeka High in 1943 and from Washburn in 1949. Larry was inducted in the Topeka High Hall of Fame in 1995. He coached 4 Trojans who claimed state championships in tennis, including Mr. Grantham's 3 titles. Larry was a coach, a teacher, a player, an official, and a mentor to us all. Larry was a great guy and a truly kind man. I said some of these words not too long ago at another friend's memorial service, but they apply to Larry as well. After 65 years, I've come to understand that at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that much what you did, who you knew, or how much money you had. It's how you lived your life. Larry Reed led an exemplary life. And he had a keg of beer on tap in the garage for about 25 years. Seriously, there's a line in the poet and singer Jules' song, Hands, that goes, "In the end, only kindness matters." Larry Reed really mattered. And here to introduce and honor his father, all the way from China, is his son, Kurt Reed, who is also one of the greatest tennis players in Topeka tennis history. Kurt?
All right, this is a real treat for me. Number one, I'm having a family reunion as a result of it, so that's really cool. My brothers and my sister are here. They chose not to speak. I'm not real sure why. I think it had to do with the fact that they didn't want to wear a tie, and I told them that they had to wear a tie if they spoke. So, Coach Pomeroy, this is kind of different than your family, okay, apparently, because Coach Pomeroy wears a tie everywhere. Anyway, thank you so much for this honor, both to Connie and the TTA and the Hall of Fame committee for selecting Dad. He would be the first to tell you right now, you got the wrong guy. He doesn't deserve it. There's Jim Clark. Jim Clark ran the Jayhawk for how many years? I mean, that tournament was named after him. Every time you thought about the Jayhawk, you'd be thinking of Jim. Harold Kossover helped with the finances and doing the stuff that, quite frankly, Dad was a crappy business person, which could explain why he gave away all the beer at the house. And I mean, it was funny because back in the day when Dad used to restring rackets, business on Sunday would just boom, because you got to keep in mind Sunday you could not sell beer in Topeka, Kansas, but you could always have one over at the Reed House, and we always had frosted mugs. So a little, so that's, Tim remembers that. I think Kent remembers that. But at that point in time, it was legal for him to have one. I also want to thank those guys and Mark for the plaque at the tennis courts. That means a lot when I walk by, and as Kenny knows, I stop and, hey, Dad, and it does. It means a lot to me. Congratulations to John and Jennifer, and yes, Bill Mills had the most beautiful ground strokes I have ever seen. Now, you want to see a thing of beauty. Watch him and Gene Mills, because they would hit together, and Gene was a long-time tennis player in Topeka, and they were a great tennis family here. And those two would hit, and I'd just sit, because he thinks he doesn't have ground strokes. I had the absolute worst ground strokes in the entire world, and Mark can attest to that. That's the only reason I learned how to serve and volley, because there's no way I was going to ever win a match hitting any ground strokes. So yeah, that was a thing of beauty to watch Bill play. And Jennifer, you were talking about serve. It was over there. It was over on that court. And you told me, and this is a young girl who you're kind of working on her serve, and I'm a little bit more mature, and I was in my late 30s at the time. And Jennifer, you need to turn your shoulder more in your backhand. And I thought, boy, God, that works. That really works pretty well. You did that. And I still, to this day, when I'm out hitting, I think of you as I'm hitting backhands going, God, you got to turn that shoulder a little bit more and you can hit it good. So when I'm looking back at everything, first of all, a little audience participation so nobody gets too bored with my speech. Did my dad string rackets for anybody here? Raise your hand if my dad strung the racket. Okay. Then, now, the next question. Did you drink a beer when you were, as the racket was being strung? Raise your hand. Okay. That's and that pretty much covers all the Hall of Famers, too, I think. It's kind of interesting. How many of you got your racket strung the night before an extremely big match? Okay, that's a bunch of other hands go up. So that's what I think Dad was famous for, is he never said no. He did, we heard no, okay? My family and I heard no, but pretty much everybody else in the city did not hear no a lot whenever it was a chance to help somebody out. So when I think back at Washburn, because Dad's journey started at Washburn as a football player and basketball player, and as Mel Brown reminds me, as a homecoming king, and Mom was a homecoming queen at Washburn. Mel likes to show me that picture on occasion, so near and dear to my heart. And then he went to Topeka High School, and he went to Effingham, then he went to Roosevelt, then he went to Topeka High. When he was at Roosevelt, a guy named Pete Woodward, who was a 1958 state champion, that was number 4. Yeah, you counted as 3 people. Yeah, Pete was number 4. Pete spoke at a memorial service, and it's funny because, Dad didn't know crap about tennis, quite honestly. He was not that good at, he knew about stringing rackets, and he could get these guys to the courts. But as far as his in-depth knowledge of tennis, but every one of them that I've ever talked to talks about how good they felt. Even John's talking about Dad saying, he always asked me if I had a girlfriend, asked me how my grades were, asked me about, and Tim says the same thing. He says, Dad was very interested in knowing about what was really happening with them. And I think everybody felt that in their heart. So, and I think that extended out as a tennis family, because we talk about a lot of tennis families like the McGraths and the Clarks and Nordstroms and the Hedbergs and all these people. And we think about the families. And I had a lot of big brothers, and I had a lot of little brothers, and I had a lot of parents. Mary Hoffman, Joel's mom, I've called her mom since I was in 7th grade. And she makes the best chocolate chip cookies you've ever had. So I look back at what all Dad's done. I think about, he resurfaced the courts for 501. That's true. They were short of funding, and they had enough to get stuff to resurface the courts. And Dad somehow figured out how you do that, and I remember going to Highland Park, Topeka West, and Topeka High, and actually resurfacing the courts. I remember him restringing rackets. I remember him running all the different tournaments locally, and I remember how important that was to him. And then it really dawned on me as I got older. I never thought of it too much, but George Milton from Emporia. George Milton was the Emporia State tennis coach for years, and when you think about Emporia tennis, you think about George Milton. Okay, when you think about Salina tennis, I still think about Ken Nordbo, and George kind of said, well, but your dad was the guy that we think about. And I said, really? I said, okay, well, And he says, I would really like for him to be in the Missouri Valley Tennis Hall of Fame. And could you tell me more? And I'm trying to think about what things to say about Dad. Oh yeah, he had the shop, and so I didn't play it. It didn't quite register, but it was something that was very important to think back on, and what it means to be, what Topeka tennis is about. So anyway, again, he would have said, I don't deserve this. And I guess maybe that's some of the more important people when they look at it. And I heard that from a couple other people tonight. And maybe that's a prerequisite to be in this Hall of Fame, is to realize that the tennis community here gave him more than he ever felt like he could give back. And he gave back for a lot of years, and he's got a son that still continues to try and give back a little bit. So thank you so much for this honor, and appreciate your time. And I appreciate everybody coming, and good to see you, Charlotte. Mike, I haven't seen you guys for a long time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kurt. That was great. And welcome Larry Reed to the Topeka Tennis Association Hall of Fame. Thank you all for coming tonight. I would be remiss if I didn't say some things about the people that really made this happen, especially Diana Chrisman. Diana, where are you? Please stand up. Please stand up. She won't stand up. Well, she's about this big with gray hair. Now, Diana is a working machine, and I can't tell you how thankful we all are to everything that you've done tonight, Diana. Appreciate it. So now we're going to just go ahead and continue to visit with each other. We have some more food. We have some drink up there. Please make yourselves at home. Thank you all for coming, and we'll probably stick around here for an hour and a half, and then for those of you that want to join us at Bullfrogs, it's a local gin mill. It's out there on Wanamaker. You just go down 29th to Wanamaker, make a left for a couple of blocks, and Mark Nordstrom, I think, is buying for everybody. Thank you all for coming, and good night.